Hi everybody! Welcome to my stream, the new Either Or, where I will be choosing between Goodfellas or The Godfather, two of the greatest gangster, or you could say mafia movies of all time. And really, just in general, in my opinion, two of the greatest films, period, of all time. Because no matter what the genre is, the two movies are just incredible, each in their own way. There are a lot of similarities with the story, but really each one has a lot of unique parts about each of the films, and I really love them both in different ways. So we'll get into all of that. We'll also share you guys' opinion from Twitter. I also put out a poll pitting Godfather against Goodfellas, so we'll see what won, and so on and so forth. So we'll talk a lot about these two movies, and I'm really excited to get into it. And we also have some great comments I'm going to be sharing from you guys about why you like one or over the other. A lot of times you guys are a lot more eloquent than me, so I really love to hear your opinions, because it's not just about my opinions, it's about you guys' too. So a lot of people are saying, why is this even a debate? Alex A on YouTube is saying Goodfellas only because it's the Godfather trilogy in just one film. I look at Godfather and nobody got time for that, Alex says. Yes, Godfather is long, but you'd be surprised to know that Goodfellas is also really long. But yes, if you're talking about the whole trilogy of the Godfather, that's even more time of your day if you're watching it all in a row. That's an insane amount of time to watch mafia movie types of films. So yeah, it'd be an extreme undertaking to do them all in a row. I don't know if I've ever done that. I've separated them across different days, but we'll see which one I pick at the end. But first, I'm going to get into what you guys has picked. So here we go. We're going to start right away. Again, you guys are watching my Either Or show, where I have to pick between two things I love. Today, I'm picking between Goodfellas or The Godfather. And like I said, it's really tough for me, but I definitely have a favorite. But first, like I teased, let's see you guys' favorites. So we're starting with my good friend, Warren, at Mr. Warren Hayes. He says, The Godfather is the godfather of mob movies. There wouldn't be a Goodfellas without it. I think that is a really, really solid point there, and yes, that is true. But, you know, one could argue that Goodfellas might have happened either way. I don't know. But I do like the point overall. I think it's a very valid one. Then someone responded to Warren, actually, and followed up. Kurt at Raider2402 said, This is a correct statement, Warren, but I might enjoy Goodfellas a bit more. So regardless of The Godfather being the godfather of mob movies, Kurt says he still enjoys Goodfellas a little bit more. So interesting take there. Then we go to at DYWTSB. Not fair, I won't choose, Kelsey. And he laughs. Yeah, it is a hard choice. Like I said, I really love both, and it's difficult for me to really to choose either, to be honest with you, because I just like to say both tie. But this whole premise of this show is I must choose, unfortunately. It's like torture for me. All right, our next comment, Nelso Kelso at Nelson Martinez says, I love Goodfellas, but if it hadn't been for The Godfather, I wouldn't have gotten obsessed with the glamorization of movie mafia movies in the first place. That's a good point there as well. Joe at Joe Mallard says, Goodfellas, because I don't get bored watching it. You have to be in a certain mood to watch Godfather. That's a good point there too, because I do think Godfather is a little more drawn out, whereas Goodfellas, like somebody alluded to in the YouTube comments, Alex said, it's more like very quick, condensed kind of thing. And there are a lot of characters in The Godfather, and we'll talk about that when I make my choice. There's a ton of characters. I think that does make the movie really rich and well-rounded, but it's also a lot for the viewer to take in and remember at the same time. But if you read the book, I find that was really helpful, and I did read the book, The Godfather, and I love that book so much. Steven at SteeJ215 says, I choose The Godfather. Very rarely in cinema will you come across a film which you can class as art. But in this case, The Godfather, it's an aesthetic masterpiece. It's a film which changes your life and your whole perception of what cinema is capable of as a visual medium. That's a beautiful statement, and I will say, because I did go to film school for a while, I didn't completely decide to finish through it with it. I switched to general studies, but I was studying film for quite a while, and of course, we studied The Godfather. That's kind of a standard thing, I think, in most film schools, but it's a very visually beautiful movie, and actually, there's some really specific parts that I really like. Like, I'll give you an example. So I just noticed this for the first time because I rewatched both of these movies recently. I rewatched both Goodfellas and Godfather within like a week from today. So basically, they're both very fresh in my mind, and I wanted to do that on purpose, obviously, so it could be very fair and really give a well-balanced opinion and a well-informed opinion for sure, which I'm really happy I rewatched because actually I didn't remember some parts of The Godfather, but rewatching it, a lot of it's really, really fresh in my mind now. Specifically, one scene that kind of brings up what Steven's saying about The Godfather being very beautiful and like a cinematic piece of art is there's a scene where Luca Brasi is going to meet with an opposing family, and he's going to try to trick them and try to pretend like he's unhappy with Don Corleone and the Corleone family. So basically, Luca's kind of going undercover, you could say. So Luca walks into the bar, and he walks past this glass window into the bar, and the glass window has these fish on it, like these Chinese-looking fish, and it looks like it's got some bubbles, like it's under the water. So Luca walks in, and of course, hopefully you guys have seen both of these movies to be watching my show right now, but I'm going to give a spoiler right now. Luca is killed in the bar, and then later they send his bulletproof vest with a fish wrapped in it to the Corleone family. So basically, I feel like it was perfect foreshadowing when he walked through the glass or by the glass that there was fishes under the water there because he literally went to sleep with the fishes. And that's kind of what the message that they sent when they sent that fish wrapped in his bulletproof vest to the family. So I feel like if you really pay attention, there's so many awesome moments in The Godfather like that. Another really artistic part, of course, one of the scenes that people love is the baptism scene where Michael is being asked, like, do you renounce Satan? And he says yes, but at the same time, you're seeing all the murders that he asked to be carried out happening at the same time as this baptism. At the same time, he's being asked, do you renounce Satan and like all of his ways? And he's saying yes. So really, Michael has gone so far down from the beginning of the film. It's just like he's really fallen and really adapted to the mafia gangster lifestyle very quickly, and he's really gotten into it and almost embraced it fully. It's like when his dad got hurt and got shot multiple times and was in the hospital, it just changed him completely, and he was like, I'm gonna do this. And I think you could tell the point where Michael changes is when he gets that baker with him to pretend like they're security guys standing outside of the hospital so that whoever was hired to come finish off Don Corleone, that they get scared off and go away. So the baker is all freaked out because the guys drive by and take off. But Michael, his hand is steady. He can light the guy's cigarette like it's nothing, whereas the baker is shaking with his cigarette like he can't even hold it up. So I think Michael even looks at his hand as he's lighting the lighter, and it's steady. So I think even right then he knew, like, maybe I am made for this life. So that's what I think. A lot of cinematic moments and a lot of artistic moments in The Godfather, for sure. There's some strong opinions here in the comments I'm seeing. Beetle MNKY Human says, Goodfellas, it sucks in comparison. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with it. I think it rules. They both rule. They both have so many great qualities. So I don't know. That's a strong opinion there. But we all can agree to disagree. And that's the fun thing about this. It's subjective. You guys might like Goodfellas or The Godfather more. And I might like the opposite one that you do more. And that's okay. Because we can all agree to disagree. And that's what I like about, sharing opinions. And that's what makes things interesting in life and in content creation, really, as a whole. So we go on with our comments at Psycho Nigiri. The Godfather is a classic and regarded as the greatest film of all time, but between the two, personally, I'd go with Goodfellas. So again, people are saying how highly acclaimed Godfather is, but they're still saying that they kind of would rather watch Goodfellas more often. I think that's like a standard thing I'm seeing in these comments, just to wrap it up. And Beetle is commenting that Goodfellas is also a classic. Just in comparison, I think what they were saying was that it's hard to compare the two when a lot of people consider Godfather like the greatest film ever. As Psycho Nigiri was also saying just now. But again, some people find Goodfellas more watchable. So we'll see what our other commenters have to say. Dr. K at Dr. KZVOSKY66 says, I picked Godfather in the poll. All things considered, it was far more intellectually stimulating story and film. Goodfellas is a good movie, but while loosely based on true events, it is a sort of dumbed down telling of a mafia story. It's like The Godfather's Cliff Notes. And it's funny, somebody else said it was like a condensed or Cliff Note version of The Godfather, but they said that in a positive way in the YouTube comments, whereas Dr. K is saying this in kind of like a negative way, and almost saying that it's not equal in standards to The Godfather. I don't agree. I think they're both so great. I don't think really I think you can have a favorite, but I think tonally and as far as great movies go, I think they're on par to be the same. They're just as good as each other, in my opinion. Maybe that's just, I really think of Goodfellas just as highly as Godfather. Maybe that's why. I don't know. Alright, so let's go to another comment here. Jeff at jmells1323, our good friend. I chose Goodfellas because it stood the test of time for me. If I see both showing on TV, I stop on Goodfellas. Whereas with The Godfather, I have to be in the right mood. Both are great, but Goodfellas was shot 18 years later, and it wasn't as revolutionary, but it's just better head-to-head with The Godfather. So that's an interesting take, too. So he's kind of conceding that Godfather is great, but Goodfellas is more rewatchable. And again, I'm seeing that over and over again in some of these comments. Alright, so Dave at Sensei Dave Bear, at Sensei_Dave Bear, The Godfather, mainly because of how faithful it stayed to the source material, the outstanding performance by an ensemble cast, and that Don Vito Corleone inspires one of the most imitated voices next to Macho Man Randy Savage. And that is a really great point because, of course, Marlon Brando had an amazing performance, and lots of people love, Al Pacino, also who played Michael. So one of the greatest actors ever, really two of the greatest actors ever in the same movie. So a lot of people really love Godfather even more because of those reasons. So good point there, Dave. Very good point. So we got Al at Al_CHUPICABRA. Can Godfather 2 be included with Godfather Uno? So a lot of people love Godfather 2 almost more than the original Godfather. And it's funny because I will talk about the book. And Mario Puzo's The Godfather, the book, that actually includes the plot for both Godfather 1 and Godfather 2. And I actually did read the book back in college. It was required reading for an English class, and I loved the book. Like, the book is really one of my favorite books of all time. No contest, really. It is so in-depth. So if you're, missing some elements of The Godfather, you can't keep the characters straight, or there's just so much going on. I feel like this clarifies a lot. And actually, there are some differences between the book and the movie. But like I said, one of the big things about the book is that it includes the plot for Godfather 2 in this one book. So there wasn't another Godfather novel. It's just all in this singular book. And that's what I love about the book specifically, but Godfather 2 is so good, and that's why Al was saying, can we combine them? Because I guess then he would be more apt to vote for Godfather if it really included Godfather 1 and 2. Again, it's really great to see the backstory of Vito Corleone, which is what they go into in Godfather 2. Now, of course, no one really likes Godfather 3 for the most part, but I don't know. It is what it is. Alright, so we go to our next comment. Vincent at Vin Pensabene. Godfather because my great-grandpa played Luca Brasi, and the stories I was told about filming were incredible. Plus, arguably, the greatest movie in cinematic history. That's interesting, and if that's true, and his grandpa played Luca, that's so insane, and what a great family to be a part of. That's so neat. Again, like I talked about a few minutes ago, Luca had that wonderful scene where he was kind of murdered in the bar, and there was a foreshadowing before he got murdered when he walked past a window pane with fishes underwater. So that's one of my favorite scenes in The Godfather. In fact, I'll talk about favorite scenes in a little while because I have quite a few from both films. There's just so many good parts that are iconic, really, for both. All right, so now let's get to the poll results quickly. And I really wish it was kind of like a larger result because we only got about 197 votes total. Some of my other polls on my Twitter get a lot more play than this, but I put this one out kind of early and I didn't get to retweet it as often, but still I think it's a fair poll nonetheless. So here we go with the results. All right, so the results are Goodfellas won over The Godfather with 54% of the vote, whereas Godfather only got 46% of the vote out of 197 votes total. And again, this is super close, so I don't think it's like a runaway for either, but I sure wish this voting pool was a little bit larger. But still, I think the results are interesting, and I think it might have been the same result even if we had pooled a larger group. That's just my opinion, of course. That's speculation. I don't know that for sure or anything. All right, so let's go to a few questions. I asked you guys if you had any questions for me about my opinions on either Goodfellas and or, I'm getting mixed up with the names now, and or Godfather, because it's a tongue twister, both with G's and everything. So my first question comes from my friend, good guy Dave, of course, at Dave Pozeski, who I believe is watching right now. Thanks so much, Dave, for all your support. He asks, who do you think were the better gangsters, those from Goodfellas or those from Godfather? And that's a tough question, actually, and I thought about this for a while. I really do think that the gangsters from The Godfather are actually the more able gangsters and the better gangsters overall. And I think they're actually, the gangsters, the family itself is longer lasting in The Godfather. Whereas, of course, Goodfellas, most of the people wind up in jail. Like, if you look at Paulie, who's kind of like the Don in the Goodfellas. He's kind of like the Don Vito Corleone of Goodfellas. So Paulie winds up in jail at the end of Goodfellas. So to me, that says right there that they're not as good of gangsters as The Godfather, where it went through generations. Like, Vito passed away, and then Michael took over for a while, and then so on and so forth. So Michael kind of led it for quite a while. And yes, there was bloodshed. Yes, there were family members murdered in The Godfather. Of course, there were people murdered in Goodfellas too. But I still think the longer-lasting family was the Godfather. The people, the main characters in The Godfather, the Corleone family. So to me, they just got away with more, and they were longer lasting. So that's why. Goodfellas, you can't really say that they were that good because, although yes, it only takes one rat to put people away, but they wound up in jail. All right, so let's go to our next question. I only had 2 or 3. So then, actually, this isn't even a question. It's just like a comment I had to point out or a reference. So Austin at FreeBYRD316 says, he just put a picture and it says Goodfeathers, and it's a picture of the Goodfeathers. And if you guys don't know where that reference is from, it's from Animaniacs, of course, one of my favorite cartoons from the 90s. And they had a little bit in a couple of episodes. It's not in every episode, but it's basically a spoof on Goodfellas, and it's called Goodfeathers. So it's about 3 pigeons. They're like definitely got a mafia gangster personality about them, and that's what I love about it. And really, they should have done a lot more Goodfeather bits, in my opinion, because there's just too few of them. They're just as good as anything else in Animaniacs, and I wish I would have been okay if they were in every episode. That's how much I liked them, and I know my co-host Paul feels the same way. He loves Goodfeathers. In fact, we started rewatching Animaniacs, and that's what he said his favorite part of the show was. He's like, I really wish they would have made more of those Goodfeathers bits, and I'm like, me too. And finally, this question, my final question, which really goes into which movie I'm going to ultimately pick. So, Figure Scooper at F Scoopers says, actually it's Scopers, at F Scopers says, Goodfellas is my favorite out of these. Which is your favorite, and why do you feel that way about that specific film? What influenced your decision? So really, I'm putting this as my final question because it leads me into what the show is all about, me choosing. And so it's tough for me because I got into Godfather first because I read the book in college. Actually, I read the book before even seeing the movie, which is rare because a lot of people do it in the opposite order. A lot of people see the movie first, and then they might decide, okay, I want to read the book and see where this all comes from. I did it the reverse way, and I'm glad I did it the reverse way, and I'll explain why in a minute. But I guess I would have to choose, although I got into Godfather first, I think ultimately I love Goodfellas. Goodfellas is so fast-paced. There's so many scenes that are just iconic and hard-hitting and well-lit and well-edited. Like, there's this one tracking shot where they're introducing all the gangsters. So well done. I mean, the opening scene, it's like from later in the movie, but they kind of tease it at the beginning of the movie where they're all driving. It's, the three main mobsters driving, and they open up the trunk, and there's like this red glow about them, and they're having to stab a guy so, he's officially dead in the trunk. And there's just this red glow, the way it's edited and the way it's lit. To me, it's great. And then, of course, the narration says, I always wanted to be a gangster. And it sets the tone of the film perfectly. And it's funny because Scorsese didn't win the Oscar for that movie. He actually won for The Departed, which a lot of people can compare to Goodfellas. And if you were to ask me, like, what would I pick between The Departed and Goodfellas, I'd still pick Goodfellas, even though I do love The Departed. I saw it in the theater, and actually it is the Oscar-winning movie out of the two Scorsese films, but I still think Goodfellas is the better film. And to me, between Godfather and Goodfellas, personally, I prefer Goodfellas, because like a lot of my viewers said, when they're flipping through, like, TV channels, and if Goodfellas is on, you'll stop no matter what, and that's how I feel. And if you buy the special edition of Goodfellas, you'll see, I think they interviewed a whole bunch of actors and a whole bunch of famous people, one of them being Leo DiCaprio, and he actually said, whenever Goodfellas is on, I stop and watch it. So to me, that says a lot. I'm with Leo. I stop and watch it every time I see it, whereas Godfather, it's a little more long, and yes, it's historic and wonderful, but this is why, to me, Godfather doesn't rank as highly for me personally. I'm not saying it's not one of the greatest films of all time, because as I said, I've been praising it all night. But what I think, read the book, I don't know how I would keep half of these characters straight. Also, it has a longer exposition at the beginning where it's like a lot more narration. The wedding scene's really long. Some parts I feel like really went on for a very long time and could have been a little more condensed. But it's so artsy though on the whole, and I love it. But again, like, the book just, it sums everything up. It gives you a lot of in-depth backstory and allows you to kind of figure out who the characters are. Whereas when you're just watching the movie The Godfather, you're bombarded with all these names. And yes, the same thing in Goodfellas. I mean, there's this tracking shot where they introduce all the gangsters. And the thing is, there's a lot of names there too, but they're not important main characters where you need to remember who these guys are. So you're not like halfway into the movie and confused. Now, maybe I'm just a simpleton, and that's why I think that way about The Godfather, and I'm not taking anything away. Like I said, it is a great film, and I love it. I really do. I liked it in college. I really went through, like, a Godfather phase, and especially Godfather 2. Like I said, if it was Godfather 2 versus Goodfellas, I think for me, it would be a lot harder to make the decision, because I actually love the backstory of Vito Corleone, almost more than the story of The Godfather. So to me, if it was Godfather 2, it would be super, even more close than this either or was. But I had to do it with the original against Goodfellas. I couldn't go Godfather 2 versus Goodfellas. I felt like that didn't go together as well. Although I probably would have picked Godfather 2. But Goodfellas is really one of my favorite films, not just mafia films or gangster films. It's one of my favorite films, period. And I really would watch it anytime. And when I rewatched it the other day, I just remembered how much I loved it, and the few hours I spent rewatching it flew by. Whereas The Godfather, it felt like it took a little bit longer, if that makes sense. I do know it pretty well, but there had been stuff I'd forgotten about it at the same time. So really, I should have been really into it, not like checking the time. But I was kind of checking the time because I was like, I know what happens, but this movie, it's got an hour and a half more. At that point, I was like, I can't believe there's another hour and a half. So to me, I wasn't bored, but it's a very long movie, and sometimes you do check the time. But overall, like I said, my favorite scene, I think, of Godfather, I'm going to say, the baptism scene is a close second, but the Luca Brasi scene where he's murdered, I just think that's awesome. The scene where Michael has to kill the two guys in the restaurant, I think that scene's really well done too. There's so many great scenes. I mean, the scene where he's closing the door on, I think her name's Kay, when he's closing the door and she's standing there looking at him like she can't believe how far he's fallen, and I don't think she really completely trusts him anymore at that point. I think that's a great ending too. And as far as Goodfellas goes, there's so many great scenes. Like I said, I think the opening scene would be my favorite, where he talks about how he always knew he wanted to be a gangster, and it's just so well done because it's a perfect tease. It opens up really fast, some guy getting murdered right off the bat. Like, you're like, whoa, this is starting right really quickly. It's not starting with like a longer wedding to set up. Even though The Godfather opens with that beautiful monologue by, I think his name is Bonaseri, asking for Godfather to avenge his daughter, who basically got beat up by some guys because she wouldn't sleep with them. So Bonaseri wants some revenge, and he wants, Don Corleone to help him get that revenge. And he's like, no, you've got justice. At first he was saying, no, you've never come to me in friendship. So that whole monologue, and it's a slow pull out of the camera, so well done. So Godfather is great, and the lighting's really dark, and especially in that opening monologue scene with Bonaseri, that's so well done. But again, I just think when you watch Goodfellas, it's like bang, 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 bang. And I think also what affects my opinion is that I'm a big Robert De Niro fan, more so than Al Pacino. So all day, any day, I would pick Robert De Niro over Al Pacino. That's a strong statement, but I like Al Pacino, but I mean, he's no Robert De Niro. And I know Paul and I were just talking about that before I came on this stream, and really, you can't beat Robert De Niro. I mean, his facial expressions, they're so great. So if you guys have enjoyed my Goodfellas versus Godfather either or, be sure to tune into my wrestling podcast if you also like wrestling, which will drop on Friday under Wrestling Inc.'s audio platforms and on their YouTube channel as well. My wrestling podcast will talk about wrestlers recast in both Goodfellas and Godfather. Which wrestlers would you put in each movie to play which characters and why? So I think that's a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun answers, so I can't wait to read those on the podcast. You guys tune in if you want to hear which wrestlers people chose to put in which film and why, because I think that's so much fun. It's something silly, but you can't go wrong with something fun and lighthearted like that. Alex says he loves how Tommy is killed. That seriously caught him by surprise. Yeah, you were in that scene. I forgot about that scene. That's a great scene too. That's one of my favorites as well, because there's a moment where Tommy realizes he's about to be killed and there's nothing he can do. He goes, oh, because he looks at the room and he's supposed to be being made. Pardon me. He's supposed to be being made, but there's nobody in the room. So as soon as he walks into the room and there's nothing there, he knows something is terribly wrong. So he's like, there's that moment that comes over his face, just great acting, wonderful acting right there. And then he gets shot in the back of the head. And then the shot where he's laying on the floor and like blood is like pouring into the carpet and over the carpet, very artsy. And so just as many great cinematic scenes as The Godfather has, I feel like Goodfellas has just as many artsy scenes, because there's just so many good little artistic things that if you really pay attention, it's well done for sure. Like Alex said, the Tommy scene where he's killed, I think a lot of people love that scene because they didn't see it coming. And then just Robert De Niro's reaction, crying and like banging the telephone when he finds out that he's been killed. It's extreme and it's awesome. I don't know. And then I just love the narration, and I don't know. I'm picking Goodfellas, guys. I'm sorry. A lot of people are like, why is this even a question? It has to be Godfather. So I'm sure I made some people angry. So I do apologize, but if you guys didn't get to vote in the poll, or didn't get to send in your comments about which movie you prefer over the other, you could still tweet me at SuperKickingIt, SuperKickingIt, and I'll put it up on the screen for you guys so you could see the spelling. And you could also go to my website, SuperKickingIt.com, to find links to my podcast, links to my blog, links to my Twitter, my Facebook, everything. Basically links to everywhere you can find me. I really appreciate you guys spending your time watching. I'd love to know if you didn't already send in your comments about which movie you prefer, like I said, because it's not just about my opinion, it's about you guys' too. Stay tuned, because future episodes of Kelsey Likes or Either Or are going to be really fun. My next Kelsey Likes is going to be a listener topic episode where you guys can send in literally any question about pop culture, wrestling. You can make me do a top 5 list of whatever, cartoons, movies, shows. You can ask what my favorite of whatever pop culture subject you want to ask. You can make me do an either or of whatever you choose, like, pick Godfather 2, or, pit it against some other movie that I love, or that you guys love. So literally any topic you can think of that is thought-provoking and interesting, you could send in the comments to @SuperKickingIt. You see it on your screen right now. And I'm going to do that next week. I think it's going to be on Tuesday night instead of Wednesday. So keep tuned to my Twitter. Again, I think it's going to be Tuesday night because I'm going out of town on Wednesday. I'll be in Chicago. So, yeah, because of my travel, I'm going to have to move it up. I apologize about that. But the next Kelsey Likes after that, a few weeks after, will be Kelsey Likes 90s Kids Movies. And if you guys are paying attention to my Twitter, there's lots of 90 movie polls on there, lots of reminiscing and really cool stuff. I mean, I've really been having a ball with that. I've been kind of pitting movies against each other from the 90s, and I've been doing it like bracket style. So we're about to get into the final poll where I'm going to put the final 4 movies against each other, and we're going to see what the ultimate 90s kids movie is. And during my episode, Kelsey Likes, it's basically going to be me listing my top favorites of kids movies. I'll be giving you trivia. It'll be a lot more extensive than this either or. And that's why I need more time, because I'm rewatching a lot of the movies and I'm researching a lot. I want to have a lot of information and interesting extra bonus things that people didn't know before. So because of all that, it's taken a little bit longer. But trust me, it'll be worth the wait. And again, I really thank you guys for sticking with me. And if you watch every week, I appreciate that even more. Please share this with your friends, spread the word, and stay tuned for Kelsey Likes 90s Kids Movies and Kelsey Likes Listener Topics. See you guys later. Thanks so much. Bye.